We are talking about the sword and sandal epic Barbarian Queen, a 1985 movie directed by Hector Oliveira, and this is by Roger Corman's production company. So this one stars Lana Clarkson, who was actually in a bunch of kind of sword and sorcery movies. She was in the original Deathstalker, Barbarian Queen 1 and 2, and also Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 2. And you've also got Frank Zagarino, who you may know, probably primarily, I would say, from the Project Shadow Chaser series. And here, this one apparently takes place in the time of the Roman Empire, but there's no real kind of evidence of that, because this is completely kind of, you know, just generic kind of fantasy kind of armour and bad guys and stuff. But anyway, she's kind of this part of this kind of particular tribe, and she's due to get married to Frank Zagarino's character, and then they are raided by a bunch of bad guys who essentially kidnap everyone, with the exception of Lana Clarkson's kind of hero character, along with two other women. And it's up to this kind of trio of women to kind of track down their kind of hidden members of their village, to try and rescue them and take down the kind of the evil warlord. So this one is less of the kind of the fantasy in regards to, there's no kind of magical creatures, no kind of wizards and things like that you maybe have in, for example, maybe like the Deathstalker or the Amazons movie that I reviewed a little while ago. So this is more of just a kind of, I guess, sword and sandal you'd call it, rather than sword and sorcery, but it is pure fantasy. So what do we think of Barbarian Queen? Well, let's go with the positives first of all. If you like this type of movie, it's kind of more of the same. If you've seen the Deathstalker films, yes, it's kind of more of the same thing. There is lots of kind of like sexy, naked nubile women on display here, running around naked, kind of like, you know, getting their clothes off at the earliest opportunity. This movie has actually got quite a lot of action sequences in it. It's more or less kind of like a bunch of action sequences, a little bit of dialogue here and there, and that's kind of your movie ultimately. So it's really, because it's a shorter running time, you know, and obviously just the kind of overabundance of action. There's plenty to look at. I was also impressed with the amount of kind of extras they had on this movie, because there we have sprawling scenes of this kind of like this cityscape, so to speak, within this kind of the bad guys' kingdom. And there's you know, it's a big set, which obviously is used by other movies as well. But nonetheless, there's loads of extras, quite a lot of you know, set building here, and we have this big hall and there's this big orgy scene, and you'll be surprised with how many kind of extra people they've got in here. This, like most of these movies, is filmed in Argentina, and you know, it's kind of a bit of fun, but it's kind of cheesy. And I've got to say, this is probably a little bit below average than the majority of these films. I recently reviewed the movie Amazons, and I think the difference between this one and that, because they are kind of similar, it's a kind of female-led kind of sword and sorcery movie. With Amazons, you've got a little bit more characterization with your kind of your lead, so to speak, your female lead. With this one, it starts off straight away. There's no intro. You pretty much start off with a member of the village getting raped, and then the kind of marauders taking over the village. There's no real introduction to our sort of characters. And when we, throughout the movie, our kind of trio of heroes, you don't really get any kind of getting to know them sort of time. They're all just kind of like straight into action. Whilst with Amazons, for example, you had, you know, a similar kind of female hero, but she had this kind of rivalry going with this kind of other one. Their parents had kind of beef together, so you just got a little bit more context with the actual the characters. So it's meant you just basically cared for them a little bit more. Now, you know, we're not watching these movies for deep kind of like characterization and all that sort of stuff, but I feel that it helps you connect that little bit extra to the characters and stuff like that. Like Amazons, however, this movie's editing is atrocious. It looks like it's literally been put in a blender and kind of spliced back together, and it's all sorts of a mess, this movie, in regards to its editing. Notably, this movie actually has a fairly kind of like well-known composers in the fact that it's got James Horner and Chris Young doing the music for it, although it isn't some of their best work, I have to say. But you'll notice that the theme from the Battle Beyond the Stars crop up here again. You know, is that Corman loves to kind of reuse stuff from sort of previous movies. The movie ends on just a really bizarre, abrupt note. On the kind of the good guys win, obviously, and that's it. Bam, the end. Just as abruptly as it kind of started. I think Lana Clarkson makes for a kind of a likable kind of heroine, whatever you want to call it. And she kind of does quite a good face acting and stuff with her when she has her her action scenes. But overall, the action is kind of a little bit kind of poorly choreographed at times, and the acting obviously massively overdubbed lines and stuff, so it all sounds pretty cheesy. The dialogue is probably as hokey as you'd expect. I mean, these films are very similar in regards to tone. If we're looking at the kind of the Deathstalker, the Barbarian Queens, the Wizards of the Lost Kingdom, all of these type of things, they're very similar in tone. But I've got to say, I feel this one, if you have to compare them all, is probably on the lesser side because it seems very simple compared to maybe some of the other ones which are slightly less simple, maybe, and have a little bit more to them. But overall, there's plenty to kind of look at. It's maybe a little bit misogynistic by today's standards. Actually, it's probably quite a lot of but there you go. This was of a time, shall we say. So overall, I had to give this one a 4 out of 10. I still had fun with it, and I think realistically, if you're looking at this type of movie, you know what to expect. But if I have to put my critical hat on, it's going to be a 4 out of 10 because, let's be honest, it's kind of very hokey by today's standards. So, have you seen it? What did you think of it? And this was, of course, followed up by Barbarian Queen 2, which we'll also be having a look at some point. So, 4 out of 10. Do you agree with my assessment? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.